I discovered that my husband was going on a cruise with his lover. But when he arrived, I was already there, standing beside her fiancé. The message appeared on my screen at 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. An email confirmation from Paradise Cruise Lines, forwarded from our shared family cloud account. It wasn't meant for me. A luxury suite, champagne package, couples massage, all booked under my husband's name for the following week. He was supposed to be in Seattle for an important business conference, but another name appeared on the reservation: Vanessa. My hands didn't shake, my coffee didn't spill. Something inside me simply solidified. 15 years of marriage suddenly made sense in one awful, crystal-clear moment. I scrolled through the itinerary with detached calm. A 5-day Caribbean cruise, ocean view balcony suite, dinner at the captain's table. Every cliché of a romantic getaway, from a man who couldn't even remember which flowers I liked on our anniversary. "Working late again tonight," he had texted an hour earlier. "Don't wait up." This wasn't just an affair. The details, cabin 1243, deck 10, starboard side, made it real. This was planning, calculation, a second life he had built while pretending to maintain ours. I walked into our shared closet. His suits hung beside my dresses, his shoes lined neatly beside mine. The sight of it made my stomach turn. I was seconds away from tearing everything down when another notification popped up on my phone. It was another upload to our family cloud. A photo, a young blonde woman posing in front of a mirror, wearing new lingerie with price tags still attached. The caption read, "Can't wait for you to take this off on our trip, counting the days." I knew her, Vanessa, the new customer service director at my husband's company, the one he insisted on inviting to our Christmas party last December, the one who looked at me with pity when she accepted a glass of wine in my home. The next morning, I met him at a quiet downtown cafe. He was taller in person, with the confident air of someone used to being in charge. Our eyes met across the room, and in that instant, we both understood. His world had been shattered too. He sat down without a word. "Show me everything," he said softly. I did. By the time our coffees went cold, we had an understanding, a partnership formed out of betrayal. "They think they're clever," I said, with a bitter smile. "They have no idea what's coming." Bradley's expression hardened. "What exactly do you have in mind?" "I've already booked the cabin next to theirs," I said, leaning in. "But one person watching their little fantasy fall apart isn't enough. Don't you think this deserves an audience of two?" He leaned closer. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we both take that cruise, as friends, coincidentally everywhere they are, and we'll make sure it's a trip they'll never forget, for all the wrong reasons." Bradley smiled for the first time. It wasn't kind. It was calculated. "I'm in," he said. "But let's be smarter than them. We don't just catch them. We destroy the illusion they built." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of anger and anticipation. By the time we dock back in Miami, they'll wish they never boarded. The week before the cruise was an exercise in acting. I helped my husband pack for his conference, chose his tie, and kissed him goodbye. I even drove him to the airport. "I'll miss you," he said, eyes avoiding mine. "I'm sure the time will fly," I replied with a smile, thinking of the suitcase I'd already hidden at Bradley's apartment. As soon as his flight took off, not to Seattle but to Miami, I drove straight to the port, where Bradley was waiting. We had spent the past week planning every move, rehearsing how we'd accidentally run into them, and memorizing the ship's layout. "How are you feeling?" he asked as we checked in. I keep switching between wanting to cry and wanting to push them both overboard, I admitted. He smirked. Already checked. Maritime law frowns upon that. His humor caught me off guard. I laughed for the first time in days. We boarded separately, agreeing to meet after settling in. My cabin, 1245, was right next to theirs. I pressed my ear to the wall. Silence. Their flight hadn't arrived yet. I unpacked, hanging up dresses I'd bought specifically for this moment. Dresses my husband had never seen. At 6 p.m., Bradley texted, "They've boarded. Just saw them. They didn't see me." My heart pounded. The moment was coming. I met Bradley at a bar 3 decks up. He handed me a martini. "To the strangest vacation either of us will ever take," he said. I raised my glass. "May we survive with our dignity, if not our marriages." We shared our stories as the night went on. He'd met Vanessa at a tech conference 2 years ago. They got engaged quickly. Too quickly, he admitted. There had been signs, secret calls, excuses, lies he ignored. 15 years, I said quietly. That's how long I gave him. We were supposed to start trying for kids next year. My voice cracked. Bradley looked at me with quiet sympathy. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," I replied. "Be angry." We needed clear heads. Around 10 p.m., we went to the main dining room for the welcome dinner. And there they were, my husband's hand on the small of Vanessa's back, their movements practiced, comfortable. The sight made my stomach drop. Bradley steadied me. "Not yet," he whispered. "Tomorrow we start." That night, I pressed my ear against the wall of my cabin. Laughter, murmurs, the sound of the bed creaking. I recorded it. Evidence. Proof. The next morning, we had breakfast on the deck. Our cheating partners had booked a snorkeling excursion, and we followed 30 minutes later. They were easy to spot, lounging together on the beach, her head on his chest. Bradley and I set up our chairs in their line of sight. My husband stood to get drinks. When he turned around, his eyes met mine. The color drained from his face. I waved casually. "What a coincidence," I said loudly enough for others to hear. "Funny running into you here. The weather's much nicer than Seattle, isn't it?" He froze. Vanessa looked up, confusion shifting to panic as she saw Bradley walking toward her. "Your lover should be more careful about sharing itineraries on the family cloud," I said lightly. "Oh, and you should meet my friend Bradley. I think he already knows your girlfriend." Vanessa's face turned white. "That ring looks lovely in the sunlight," I added. "Does your fiancé know you're engaged?" People nearby had started watching. "This isn't what it looks like," my husband stammered. "Really?" I asked, nodding toward Vanessa and the 2 blue cocktails in his hands. "Because it looks exactly like what it is." Bradley stepped closer. "We've booked all the same excursions as you," he said to Vanessa. "What a wonderful coincidence. We'll be seeing a lot of each other." And that was only day 1. That night, Bradley and I regrouped in my cabin. The shock we'd caused wasn't enough, not for what they'd done. "They're rattled," he said, pacing. "I saw Vanessa trying to change their dinner reservations." "They won't get far," I replied. "I've made friends with a few crew members who update me on their every move." This wasn't impulsive anymore. It was strategy. Before I left home, I'd photographed every document in my husband's office, downloaded his texts from our cloud backup, and traced a year of hotel and gift receipts. Bradley had done the same with Vanessa, gathering screenshots, tracking her locations, even uncovering that she'd been diverting investor funds from his company to pay for her luxury habits. Tomorrow was the formal dinner. "They'll expect a scene," I said. So we don't give them one, he replied. Exactly. We'll be charming, polite. We'll invite them to our table. I pulled out a sealed envelope from my suitcase. Inside were security camera photos from past cruises. Proof my husband and Vanessa had taken 8 trips together in 18 months. I had paid the head of security well for them. Bradley looked stunned. You really thought of everything. When your husband brags about loyalty programs, I said, it leaves a trail. I laid the photos out in order. Tomorrow night, they'll realize we know everything. Not just about this trip, but about every lie before it. We stayed up planning every encounter for the days ahead. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was precision. This was justice, carefully timed to arrive at sea. As my husband and Vanessa stepped onto the tour bus, the color instantly drained from their faces when they saw us. I greeted them with a bright smile and slid into the seat right behind them. Good morning. Sleep well? I asked casually. Vanessa kept her gaze locked straight ahead, body stiff with tension. My husband tried forcing a weak smile. Look, we can talk privately. Oh, we'll have plenty of time to talk. I interrupted smoothly. We still have 3 full days left on this lovely cruise. No rush. During the tour, Bradley and I kept our conversation polite and light, occasionally tossing in harmless questions that made our companions squirm. Have you been here before? The architecture's beautiful, isn't it? Each normal comment seemed to rattle them more than any direct accusation ever could. By the time we returned to the ship, they were visibly unraveling, whispering urgently, glancing around, jumping whenever they spotted us nearby. That evening's formal dinner was the next stage. I slipped into a sleek black dress I had bought especially for this trip. Elegant and understated, but sharp enough to make a statement. Bradley wore a tailored suit that perfectly fit his athletic frame. We entered the dining room a deliberate 15 minutes after my husband and Vanessa had been seated. Mind if we join you? I asked brightly, already pulling out a chair at their table for 2. The maitre d' mentioned there was room. He couldn't say no without creating a scene, so they shifted uncomfortably as we sat down. Lovely evening, isn't it? Bradley began with a calm smile, unfolding his napkin. Then, turning to Vanessa, he added casually, That dress looks familiar. Didn't you wear it to the Henderson Charity Gala last month? Her eyes widened slightly. That gala had been a work event, one where she'd introduced my husband as her colleague. Yes, I think so, she stammered. I waved to a waiter. Champagne for the table, please. We're celebrating. My husband's expression darkened. What exactly are we celebrating? Anniversaries, I replied, pulling an envelope from my purse. Specifically, the 18-month anniversary of your first cruise together. I began laying out photos on the table, one by one, like dealing cards. Caribbean, March last year. Mediterranean, May. Alaska, July. Each of these during what you told me were business trips. The blood drained from his face. How did you... I've always admired your consistency, I said, keeping my voice even though my heart was pounding. Same cruise line, often the same cabin category. Made tracking surprisingly simple. Vanessa's hand trembled as she reached for her glass. That's when Bradley joined in. Speaking of consistency, he said, sliding a folder toward her. I've been reviewing our company finances. There's an interesting pattern of withdrawals that line up perfectly with the dates of these cruises. Vanessa froze mid-sip. That's not... You can't prove... Our investors seemed quite interested in the documentation, Bradley continued calmly. had a fascinating call with them yesterday. This was the moment we had been preparing for, watching their dawning realization that this wasn't an emotional outburst, but a calculated, methodical confrontation. We had receipts, literally and figuratively. "What do you want?" my husband finally muttered, barely audible over the clinking of dishes around us. For tonight, I leaned forward slightly. Just dinner, some pleasant conversation. Maybe tell Bradley about your upcoming conference schedule. He'd probably love to know which business trips are actually romantic getaways. They sat frozen, trapped in the lies they'd spun. When the champagne arrived, I raised my glass. To truth, it always surfaces eventually. Dinner continued in polite tones, though every few minutes we dropped another subtle detail proving just how thoroughly we'd uncovered their affair. Each revelation landed like a precision cut, small but effective. By dessert, they looked sick. As we stood to leave, I slid a key card onto the table. "For your convenience," I said softly, "it's for the cabin next to yours. We've been taking turns, listening through the wall. The soundproofing's terrible." My husband's face twisted in horror as it hit him that even their most private moments hadn't been private at all. As Bradley and I walked away, he whispered, "That was masterful. But this is just the beginning, right?" I nodded. Tomorrow we move to phase 2. Tonight was about showing them we know everything. Tomorrow's about showing them what that knowledge will cost. Back in my cabin, I finally allowed myself a moment of grief, not for him, but for the life I'd believed in. 15 years gone, trust destroyed, but in its place, something else had formed. A quiet sense of power. I hadn't broken. I had responded, strategically. I sent Bradley a text before bed. "Thank you for today. Tomorrow we show no mercy." His reply came almost instantly. "They created this. We're just making sure they face the consequences." I fell asleep to the faint sound of their muffled argument through the wall, a lullaby of justice beginning to play. The third morning of the cruise dawned bright and calm, perfect for what we had planned. While my husband and Vanessa spent the night fighting, Bradley and I finalized arrangements with crew members and a few passengers who were more than happy to help. At breakfast, we spotted them hunched over coffee, looking exhausted. Instead of approaching, we sat in the center of the dining room, laughing with new friends, 2 couples from my husband's industry. As we passed by their table later, I said cheerfully, "Rachel and Diana are from Westbrook Partners, apparently." What a coincidence running into them here. My husband's coffee cup clattered against his saucer. Westbrook Partners was a major potential client his company had been chasing for months. Now they were learning about his business trip while he sat beside his mistress. "We're having drinks with them later," Bradley added lightly. "You should join us. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your upcoming professional commitments." They didn't respond, but the message landed. Their secret affair was starting to leak into their professional lives. By noon, we moved into phase 2. During their couple's massage appointment at the spa, they arrived to find their sessions had been split into separate rooms. Meanwhile, Bradley and I enjoyed their original time slot, thanks to a generous tip and a convincing story about our own anniversary. The rest of the day brought small, deliberate inconveniences. Their lunch reservation vanished from the system. Their shore excursion got mysteriously overbooked. Their custom requests were misplaced. Nothing that could be traced to us, just enough to chip away at their romantic getaway. But the real turning point came that evening. The ship was hosting a talent show, followed by a dance contest. Bradley and I had signed up and quietly entered my husband and Vanessa's names too. Our next contestants, announced the cruise director, are celebrating something special tonight. Let's welcome David and Vanessa. A spotlight hit their table. They froze, horrified. The crowd clapped. We've heard they're celebrating 18 months of relationship bliss, and I also hear congratulations are in order for Vanessa's engagement. Wait, that can't be right, the director said, reading from the card I'd helped prepare. Confused whispers spread through the lounge. Maybe they're shy, Bradley called out. Maybe they'd prefer if we showed some photos first. The big screen behind the stage flickered on, showing candid security photos from their past cruises, mixed with screenshots of their text messages arranging meetups. Nothing explicit, but plenty for the crowd to piece things together. We didn't authorize this, my husband sputtered, standing up. Oh, one last photo, I announced, nodding to the AV technician I'd befriended. The image changed to Vanessa's engagement post. She was beaming beside Bradley, showing off a massive ring. The timestamp was unmistakable. 6 months into her affair with my husband. The crowd fell silent. Then came the whispers, the judgmental looks. They'd counted on anonymity during their business trips. Not this time. I think that's our cue, Bradley said, standing and offering me his hand. Let's show them how it's done. We stepped onto the floor and performed a tango we'd rehearsed for weeks, sharp, controlled, every movement deliberate. When we finished, the room erupted in applause. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my husband and Vanessa slip out, heads low, humiliated. We followed at a distance, watching them argue on the deck. Accusations, denials, blame. They're falling apart, Bradley murmured. Good, I replied quietly, but we're not done yet. That night, we enacted the final part of our onboard plan. While they scrambled to contain the fallout, I arranged for the ship's photography team to deliver a special souvenir album to their cabin. Inside were high-quality photos taken throughout the cruise, shots of them looking tense, arguing, glancing nervously over their shoulders, while Bradley and I appeared calm and smiling in the background. The title on the cover read elegantly, "When Truth Surfaces, A Journey of Discovery." We watched from the hallway as a steward slipped it under their door. Through the crack, I saw my husband's face when he opened it, the recognition, the defeat. But the true finale came the next morning as the ship prepared to dock. "Attention passengers," came the PA announcement. "Would David and Vanessa please report to the purser's office regarding an urgent issue with your disembarkation documents?" When they arrived, pale, anxious, they were met by not only the purser, but also a representative from the cruise line's corporate office, another connection we'd quietly arranged. "Mr. David, Ms. Vanessa," the representative began, "it appears your booking was made under your company's business account. However, evidence suggests this trip was personal, not professional." My husband's face twisted. "That's ridiculous." "There's also concern regarding company credit card misuse for non-business expenses," the rep continued. "Your compliance department has been informed." Bradley and I watched discreetly, from a distance, as my husband's professional world began to collapse. The files I'd forwarded to his company's ethics office had triggered a full investigation. At the same time, Vanessa was told her access to her startup's financial accounts had been frozen pending an audit. The withdrawals Bradley had traced were now part of a larger fraud inquiry. Standing there, Watching their carefully constructed double lives crumble, I felt something unexpected. Not glee, but quiet justice. "This isn't just about cheating," I said to Bradley softly. "It's about arrogance. They thought they'd never be caught." "Do you regret any of it?" he asked. I thought for a moment. Only trusting someone who didn't deserve it. But this? I nodded toward them. No, not at all. When my husband and Vanessa finally stepped out of the office, pale and shaken, I met them halfway down the corridor. "Enjoy the cruise?" I asked evenly. He looked at me, not angry anymore, just afraid. Afraid of what else I might have done. "This is only the beginning," I told him quietly. "When we dock tomorrow, your belongings will be waiting at a hotel. The locks at home are changed. Divorce papers are with my lawyer. And everyone, family, friends, colleagues, knows exactly why." Then, turning to Vanessa, I added, "I hope your wedding vendors offer refunds. Bradley tells me he's already spoken to them." She flinched. "The thing about betrayal," I said, "is that it reveals who people truly are. You both showed me exactly who you are. I'm just making sure everyone else knows too." Bradley and I walked away, leaving them speechless in our wake. That night, our final one aboard, we dined at the captain's table, the reservation that had once been theirs. When Bradley raised his glass, I clinked mine softly against his. "To truth," he said. "To freedom," I replied. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of my new waterfront condo. The ocean stretched endlessly ahead, vast, uncertain, beautiful. For the first time in years, that uncertainty felt thrilling. The divorce had finalized quickly. Overwhelmed by evidence and professional fallout, my husband hadn't contested a single term. His affair cost him more than his marriage. The ethics investigation led to a demotion and public censure. He was even banned from the cruise line for fraudulent business expenses. As for Vanessa, her story ended even worse. The audit uncovered deeper embezzlement, leading to criminal charges. Her lavish wedding never happened. The non-refundable deposits and legal fees crushed what was left of her finances. I sipped my coffee, watching seagulls drift over the water. My phone buzzed. "Bradley. Just landed. Still on for lunch?" Our connection had evolved, not romantic, but solid. A genuine friendship built through shared betrayal and resilience. We'd supported each other through the legal mess and the emotional rebuilding. "See you at the pier at 1, I texted back. When I arrived, he was already there at our usual patio table, smiling. "The Tokyo deal closed," he said proudly. "Investors are thrilled." "Congratulations," I laughed. "Not bad for someone whose fiancé tried to sink his company." He chuckled. "Speaking of sinking, heard anything about our favorite couple?" "Not really," I said, "but a friend saw David at a conference. Apparently, he looks haunted." "Vanessa's plea deal went through," Bradley added. "Probation, restitution, community service. Her parents even mortgaged their house for her legal bills." We exchanged the updates with a kind of detached calm. Not bitterness, just closure. The need for revenge had faded into something better, indifference. As dessert arrived, Bradley said, "That cruise line emailed me. Holiday Caribbean itinerary. I was thinking of going back." I raised an eyebrow. "Another revenge cruise?" He smiled faintly. "No, a normal one. Maybe reclaiming the experience. Just enjoying it. Would you come? As friends?" I paused, then nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." As we walked along the waterfront afterward, the sunlight glinting off the waves, I realized something had shifted. That cruise, the one meant to expose betrayal, had uncovered something far more important: my resilience. "You know," I said, "sometimes I almost want to thank them." Bradley looked surprised. "Thank them?" "For forcing me to become someone stronger, for introducing me to a real friend," I said, smiling faintly. "Their betrayal hurt, but what came after? I wouldn't trade it." He nodded. "If Vanessa hadn't cheated, I'd still be tied to someone corrupt. Instead, I'm rebuilding something honest." We stopped to watch the sailboats drift by, golden light spilling across the water. "True closure doesn't come from revenge," I said softly. "It comes from building something real from what's left." Bradley checked his watch. "About that cruise, New Year's itinerary?" "Perfect way to start the next chapter," I replied. As we said goodbye, I looked out at the horizon, the same ocean that had carried us through betrayal. It no longer symbolized loss. It represented freedom. The future stretched open before me, vast and uncharted, and for the first time in years, I was truly excited to see where it would lead.